All right. On the bench, or almost on the bench, we have a Roland JC-50, which is a solid state amplifier built in 1983. And this thing's in remarkably good condition for a 40-year-old amplifier. Now, the issue that my customer is having with this amplifier is it's actually what I call farting out. You'll strum the guitar and the sound will start, but then it'll crap out really quickly and die out, and it's very subject to any kind of vibration. So more than likely at this point in time, I'm assuming there's a bad solder joint, or we've got a component failure, something like a capacitor or something that's failing pretty badly. So I picked it up, I loaded it in my truck, and when I loaded it in, I heard a really awful noise come out of the speaker. As I was driving, I could hear something moving around in there and sounding like it was arcing or discharging a capacitor or something and getting through to the speaker. So it happened again when I unloaded it. So anyway, I got it in the house and pulled the back off and there's the foot switch, pulling that stuff out of the amplifier and getting ready to get the chassis out of there, because I wasn't going to plug it in again until I had that chassis out and I could get a look in there and see what was going on. So that's what we're going to do next. We're going to go ahead and pull that chassis and get the chassis up on the bench. It almost sounds like a scratchy pot, but it's not. So in a second you'll hear it die out. I'm going to strum it again here in a second, and I'm going to tap on the chassis and it'll just stop. You'll just hear it die. Right there. Yeah, that's not a scratchy pot. So we got another issue. We're going to have to dive into this thing. So I'm tapping around in there and trying to make that awful noise again, and I can't seem to be able to do it. And all this time, I didn't notice. Look at the spring, the reverb springs, and look at that connector with no connector on it. So I will notice it in a minute, but I didn't notice it right away. So I tapped around trying to make that, weird noise again, and I couldn't do it. So I wanted to check the fuse to make sure it wasn't overfused, and it wasn't. It was supposed to be a 3 amp fuse, and it is. So I put the fuse back, and then I reset the camera. I had it backwards for some reason. So anyway, that's when I noticed that little connector flopping around in there. So I deformed those connecting wires a little bit to help the connector stay together better, and stuck it back on there. Eventually I was going to end up having to make it firm it up a little bit. I put a little bit of silicone down to hold that in place. But I wanted to make sure it was making good connection. So once I got it back together, I checked the other one to make sure that it was solid, and then I hooked up a guitar to it and tested it out to make sure that everything was going to be good. So I popped the switch on, and I have a Strat sitting right next to it, so it's kind of twangy, but I can tell already that the issue of it farting out is gone. So that connector being pulled loose was probably all that was wrong with it. The amplifier seems very well built, and they've taken really, really good care of it. You can tell because of the age of the thing. I mean, it's 40 years old, and it's in really good condition. I noticed that there's probably been somebody else in here before, but I don't see that they've done anything. I don't know why they would have opened it up, but one of the screws was missing off the chassis mount, so I think somebody has been in here. So I'm going to check out the other functions. It's got a couple of different sounds, the chorus and vibrato and reverb, of course. And I'm going to go through and check those and check the treble and bass, make sure all the functions are working well. I didn't see any scratchiness in any of the pots, which is good. So that was going to be the only sound test I was actually going to do with it. I don't do one after I get it back together. Didn't see the point. But I am going to go ahead and clean the pots while I've got it open. I haven't even worked on this thing for 45 minutes yet, so let's let them get their hours worth out of me. I'll clean all the pots and clean the jacks and switches and make sure all that stuff's going to be okay. I think at some point, I'm not going to do it now, I'm going to go ahead and get this back to them, and then I'm probably going to recommend that we do a cap job at some point because of the age, and it does hum a bit. It's not bad, but it does. But my customer is a music store, and they have a big account with one of the local school districts, and this is actually an amplifier from the school district. So I'll let them talk to their contact there about possibly recapping this thing and cutting down on some of the hum. So I tightened up those connectors. They're pretty solid. I don't like that type of connector, but what I am going to do is put a dab of silicone and tie that connector down to the chassis with just one drop on one side of it so that it won't tend to pull loose. And if it does have to be taken loose, a little snip with a diagonal cutter will cut it loose. But that'll ensure that it isn't going to pull off of there again. So we'll kind of get in here tight and take a look at that drop of silicone. That ought to do it. Got one on that one and one on the other one. And I think that's going to be all we're going to do with this one for now. So anyway, it's done. I got it back together. Not going to test it out again, but I'll do it again down at the music store later on. It was missing a chassis screw, so I found something I could put in there to hold it solidly. Didn't want that corner flopping around. So that's a wrap. Thanks for watching.